Hey, hello friends, this is Pastor Scott. We're continuing going through Mark's Gospel as now we're coming right up on Palm Sunday, Holy Week, Resurrection Sunday. What a fantastic time of the year. All right, for us as believers, man, this is it. This is what it's all about, where the entire direction of history changed with what Christ did. So we're going to lean into a passage from Mark chapter 9 this week. Now remember that on the back of your handout, there's all of those readings. I've blocked all that out so you can read all the way through Mark's Gospel with 5 different readings each week. So keep going with that. But we're going to hone in on a passage where Jesus begins to make it clear to the disciples, we're going to Jerusalem. I'm going to be handed over to the Gentiles. I'm going to be killed, but I will rise again from the dead. So I know that normally right now we're talking about Palm Sunday and things, but this is actually the preview, right? This is the episode that happens right before Jesus goes to Jerusalem, and I think it sets the stage in a really cool way. So we're looking at what's called the Transfiguration, where Jesus goes on top of a high mountain and Moses and Elijah appear along with him. All right, there's some pretty cool codes that are going on here. So let's see if we can decode this passage, get out our text detective hats, and kind of work through this. So on your handout, I'm going to have a picture there of Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is the tallest mountain in Israel. There's actually a ski resort on top of it. It's very high. It gets snow every winter, something that kind of blows people's minds. But Mount Hermon sits at the very north. It's modern day the border between Israel and Lebanon, but it is the highest mountain. And we know that right before this, Jesus is with the disciples at Caesarea Philippi in the north. So it would make sense that if he's going on to a high mountain, it would be Mount Hermon. So we're going to use that as the setting for this story. But it also plays a very interesting role in Jewish history. So in Genesis chapter 6, it talks about these interesting characters, the B'nai Elohim, or the sons of God, that are sort of like these divine, human, spiritual creatures, and there's something going on with that. Well, in a Jewish book called First Enoch, that was very popular in the first century, even though it's not in the Bible, all right, but in First Enoch, it talks about these B'nai Elohim were 200 demons that arrived on earth to cause mischief. They were there to disrupt God's perfect plan for the people that were made in His image. Their job was to spread idolatry, immorality, murder, bloodshed, violence, all of these things. And when those 200 demons arrived on earth to cause all these problems, where did they land? Mount Hermon. That's where they started all the trouble. And it's all the trouble that led to the flood. It led to the spread of sin. Okay, so Jesus now goes up onto Mount Hermon. And that's the place where he's going to begin the pathway that leads to his crucifixion and resurrection. So what happens on Mount Hermon? While he's there, all right, on this high mountain, it says that, that while he is up there, his clothes begin to turn white. And Mark makes this interesting thing. It's like a laundry commercial or for detergent or something. It says, his clothes were whiter than any launderer's soap can make them. Okay, thanks Mark for the detail about that. You know, let's figure out what detergent Jesus is using. But there's something else going on here. Here's what I think is going on. In Malachi chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, one of the very last prophets of the Old Testament, it says, I am about to send my messenger, who will clear the way before me. Indeed, the Lord you are seeking will suddenly come to his temple. And the messenger of the covenant whom you long for is certainly coming, says the Lord of heaven's armies. This has been understood as a messianic passage, that God's Messiah will appear at the temple in Jerusalem, which is right where Jesus says we're going to the disciples right after this. But there's more. Who can endure the day of the Messiah's coming? Who can keep standing when he appears? For he will be like a refiner's fire, like a launderer's soap. Oh, apparently Mark knows his Old Testament. and says that Jesus' garments are now, even his garments are declaring that he's the Messiah, the Son of God. He will act like a refiner and purifier of silver. He will cleanse the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. Then they will offer the Lord a proper offering. The Messiah is going to show up at the temple. He's going to be purifying. His garment will be like a launderer's soap. It's so clean, it's so white, it's so pure. But then the appropriate offering will be given, which will be Jesus himself. So the whole idea, even these white garments, it's not just a detail. It's Mark signaling to us, this is the one. This is the one that Malachi talked about. Jesus is the Messiah. But it goes on from there to say that as the disciples are watching, his garments get white, and then they see Moses and they see Elijah talking to Jesus. Okay, Moses and Elijah. We know that in the Old Testament, those are the only two that saw God face to face, and both times happened on Mount Sinai. On Mount Sinai, Moses and Elijah both saw God and got called for their ministry. And interestingly enough, Elijah's taken up in the fiery chariot. Moses, we're never really told about his death other than he died, he never entered the promised land, and God buried him. So both of them had kind of a, not really a death experience. And now they appear with Jesus. So Peter picks up on this and says, oh, check it out. Jesus is now one of the big three. We've got Moses, we've got Elijah, like the two top prophets. Every good Jewish boy has a poster of Moses and Elijah on their wall because they're like, whoa, the number one prophets. So he says, oh, Jesus, this is cool. Let us build 3 booths. One for Moses, one for Elijah, one for you. You're in the group, Jesus. You're as great a prophet as Moses and Elijah. Remember how Mark's gospel shows the disciples not quite catching on? Peter is thinking, oh, Jesus is a prophet just like them. And then a voice from heaven comes and says, this is my one and only Son. Listen to him. And Moses and Elijah disappear and only Jesus is there. So God is having to say, good try, Peter. This is not just a prophet. This is my Son. This is the one, which the writer of Hebrews picks up on as well. Moses was a great prophet. Jesus is the Son of God. So right there we have in Mark this very clear designation that Jesus is like that. But even when God says, listen to him, that's a callback to Deuteronomy chapter 18. In Deuteronomy 18, Moses says, God is going to raise up a prophet like me, and when he comes, listen to him, because he will speak the very words of God directly to you. Whoa. So, in this whole transfiguration passage, there is callbacks and hyperlinks to some of the best stories of the Old Testament. Moses, Elijah, Mount Sinai, all of these things that are happening, and it's telling us now. And even in Mark chapter 9, as we continue after the Mount of Transfiguration, the disciples ask, why does Elijah have to come first before the Messiah comes? They know Malachi chapter 3 also, about one that comes first. And Jesus explains to them again, all right, guys, Elijah has come. It was John the Baptist. And now the Messiah is about to go to Jerusalem, where he will offer himself as the appropriate sacrifice. Whew. Cool stuff. All right, you're going to be reading about these things in your group. God be with you as you explore this and have an amazing Holy Week. Remember, there's going to be services for Good Friday, 3 services on Easter. Make sure you are there for those things and bring someone that needs to hear about this Jesus. All right, God be with you.